the first chapel of the semester. We're glad you're all here. So Em and I just wanted to share something that's starting tonight. So there should be a slide up here. So we're starting to do, we're going to be doing corporate prayer on Tuesday nights here in Upper Seeger at 8 p.m. And the Lord has just burdened Emma and I just for the need to pray and intercede for our campus, for our students, for our professors, the administration, etc. And Emma's just going to share a little bit of that vision and why.
Yeah, I've always just for the past 2 years, the Lord has really burdened me to pray for our campus. And something changes when you actually get God's heart for something. And this past 2 years, it's just looked like me being like, Lord, what's your prayer for our campus? How do you want to move on our campus? And I'm reminded of the story of Mary of Bethany and how she just stayed at Jesus' feet. And people were like, this is a waste. You're pouring out this really expensive oil at Jesus' feet. We could use that to feed the poor. But she wasted time and money and just energy to seek the Lord. And she knew Jesus at that moment more than everybody that was around her. So we want to invite you guys to this corporate prayer to kind of get God's heart for our campus.
Yeah, so once again, it will be every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Upper Seeger, and we're just going to trust the Lord to move and just get his vision and a heart for our campus and just to pray for one another and needs first. So we encourage y'all to come out this night or just whenever you're able to come. It'll be every Tuesday at 8 here in Upper Seeger.
Thank you, guys.
Hello, everybody. We just wanted to take this opportunity to welcome you all to the first convo of the semester. It is super exciting. We're so glad that all of you are here. My name is Maddie, and my favorite thing in the world is my dog.
My name is Chase, and my favorite thing in the world is probably music. And we also want to thank the men's volleyball team for welcoming everyone here today. Thank you all.
Yeah, so today we're going to sing one song, and then we're going to start our new series, and Rich Aubrey, who's the campus minister, is going to kick us off with that. So our new series for this semester is called Finding Your How, Spiritual Discipline as a Path to Purpose.
And we're going to do things a little differently today. We're actually going to have some audience participation. So when Rich gets up, Maddie and I will actually be out in the audience, and you all have a chance to answer some questions. So make sure you pay attention.
Yeah, that'll be really exciting. But before that and before we sing, let's all pray together. Dear God, thank you so much for every single person in this room. Thank you for your spirit that you are here. I pray that you will just bless this time of worship together and that we will learn a lot and that we will learn about spiritual disciplines and we will learn more about your heart. So thank you for this opportunity and thank you for every single person who has been able to make it today. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right. If you guys want to stand, we're going to sing Amazing Grace. If you don't know this song, I'm really sorry. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieves. How precious did that grace appear, the hour 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun. We've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Thanks so much. You can have a seat. Yeah, let's give Val a hand. And I want to thank Val for leading that song. Joel Duzan, a member of the men's volleyball team, was going to lead that, but he's a little under the weather. And so I appreciate Val for taking his place. And thanks to all of you for singing along, those of you who did. I wanted to use Amazing Grace today for several reasons. First of all, I wanted to sing that song because it's pretty widely known. It's pretty familiar. And it's always a good experience to sing with other people. And so the more we sing songs that you know, the more of you who are able to participate in that. But I also wanted to sing it because it illustrates the first of the 5 statements that I'd like for us to consider together. And they are 5 statements about us. And the first one is pretty simple, and it's this: we knew amazing grace. Like, that's a generalization, so it probably doesn't apply to every individual in here, but for the most part, we knew amazing grace. And whether you chose to sing or not, the song. And I know we have a variety of different types of people in the room today. We're from a variety of different places, from different cultures and subcultures. When it comes to our faith journeys, we're in different places. We have some different beliefs. Some of you are extremely serious about following Jesus, and some of you maybe not so much, and quite frankly, there are some of you who don't know what you believe or don't believe. And that's okay, because today I'd like to focus on things that are pretty common to all of us. The we statements, generally things that we have in common. So I think you will agree that most of them apply to you just as they apply to just about everybody else in the room. So maybe not everyone knew amazing grace, but I'm going out on a limb, but that most of you did. But the other reason is the message that is included in that song. It depicts what we usually think of when we think of grace. Think about the lyrics. I once was lost, but now I'm found. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. And then the last verse, when we've been there 10,000 years. Kind of in short, that summarizes the way we think about grace. And that is that we were lost in our sin. Jesus, through God's grace, died for us and offered salvation, and then someday we'll be in heaven. And that's kind of the way we think about grace. That's our traditional view of grace. If you were at Vespers Sunday night, you heard Caden speak about grace, and he used this definition. He said, grace is receiving something when it is not deserved. Well, that's a pretty good definition. And that definitely applies to Jesus' death and to forgiveness and salvation and so on and heaven. But today I want us to realize that it applies to much more. You know, if I asked you, what did you do to earn Jesus dying on your behalf, like most of you would, you wouldn't try to answer that question in any other way than by saying, well, nothing. I didn't do anything to earn that. But let me ask you a couple other questions. What did you do to deserve being born? How did you earn your own birth? Well, I think if you stop and think about that, you'll realize you didn't. What did you do to earn the first breath you took this morning after you woke up? Like, if you stop and think about that, you'll realize, like, you didn't really earn those things either. So, we all knew amazing grace. However, when you get right down to it, we may not have known just how amazing it is. Because grace is so amazing and so expansive, and it applies to every second of every life. Because we are the recipients of grace. Whether we consider ourselves saved or not, we all have breathed today. And even in that very breath, that gift from God is undeserved. And so, we are the recipients of amazing grace. I'll talk more about that later. My second statement that applies to most, if not all of us, is this, and that is, we have a why. Now, I think we would certainly verbalize it differently, but all of us have some reason or another why we get out of bed. It's very human to pursue something or to pursue some cause or a person or persons. All right, so now Chase and Maddie are going to get up. And if you are willing to answer the question, what is your why? Raise your hand and they'll come find you. Chase is working this side of the room and Maddie's working this side of the room. If you're willing to share it with the rest of us, is that me? If you're willing to share with the rest of us the answer to the question, what is your why? Raise your hand and here come Chase and Maddie. Nobody gets SFP officially until these questions are answered. What is your why? Do we have any volunteers? Oh, we have one right up here. All right, Maddie's found one. If you're over here, raise your hand. Chase will find you while Maddie's talking. Good. All right, stand up there if you would. Go ahead. Take us through this, Maddie.
What's your name?
Susan.
And what is your why, Susan?
My why is to help people however I can.
To help people. I didn't hear the last part, Susan.
However I can.
Oh, however you can. All right, to help people. Susan, thank you for sharing your why. Chase, who do you have?
What is your name?
Daniel,
And what is your why?
my why this particular morning was to complete all my classes so that I didn't have to do the work later.
There you go. Daniel's to complete all this there. Give him a hand, yeah. If we had professors here like we do in a normal year, they would have maybe given you a standing ovation for that, Daniel. So, all right. There's two sample answers to the question why. I'll share my answer to the question why. This is a picture of my family. There's a picture of my family up on the screen. It's not the same picture, but it's the same family. I use this as representative of my why. Because when I answer the question, what is my why? I would answer it by saying my why is people. And these are the people that are closest to me. And so, they're certainly not the only motivating force in my life, but I think in my life experience, people have been the strongest motivating force. They're my primary why. So, you might think that a campus minister should say, Jesus is my why. And maybe I should, and there are certainly ways in which that's true for me and for other people in the room, but I'm going to acknowledge this to you. I have never literally hugged Jesus. I've hugged all of those people. I've never had the privilege of giving Jesus a high five. I've high-fived all those people. I have laughed heartily with those people. I've cried with those people. I've done many of those same things with some of you. And so it's not just my immediate family who represent my why. You represent my why as well. People everywhere. But the truth of the matter is, we benefit from our connection with people, and that's why I consider it my why. I had an experience sitting right down here. I think it was 3 years ago, while I was still coaching, before I was campus minister, and I was in a chapel, and I was seated with Jeff Bourne, who's assistant women's basketball coach, and Phil Kennison, professor. And the speaker that day talked about a traumatic experience in her life. And it just so happens that my family and I had been through the same traumatic experience together. And not too far in my past. And when chapel ended and the place cleared out, for some reason, Jeff and Phil and I remained seated. I knew why I remained seated. It's because I was feeling emotional and I really didn't want to get up and talk to anybody else. And before I knew it, I was sitting there and I was crying. I was like feeling the pain of what I had been through. And Jeff and Dr. Kennison just sat there. And I felt their presence. Like, you know how sometimes when somebody's like really with you, like I felt presence from both of them. And as best I could, I explained to them why the pain I was feeling and why the speaker's message had hit me in the heart. And both of them just sat there and shared their presence with me. And I think it's because of experiences like that it just seems most natural for me to say that people are my why. Again, we would all describe them differently. Susan described hers one way, Daniel another way, and I described mine a third way. And if we had time to hear everybody's why, like everybody would have a different why, a different description of their why. But the fact that everybody got out of bed this morning reminds us that in some way, shape, or form, we all have a why. Well, there's something else about us. We have habits. There are things we do regularly without having to really stop and think and make a decision about it. In his book, The Common Rule, I've recommended that, and I know some of you have taken me up on my invitation to read that book. The Common Rule, Justin Earley defines a habit as a behavior that occurs automatically over and over and often unconsciously. I think the most common area, or the first area that we usually think about our habits, has to do with our health, you know? So, like it's one thing to say that I value physical health or physical fitness. But if I don't ever darken the door of the wellness center, or I don't ever put my running shoes on, like, do I really believe in physical health and physical fitness and physical well-being if I don't ever do any of those things? So his point in that book, by the way, is that our habits shape us just as much, if not more, than our beliefs. You know, it may help you to think about your habits, to think about your phone. If you think about how our habits form, Like you think about what you do with your phone. Think of all the things that you just do, and you probably don't stop to think about. You check your texts. Go ahead, I'll give you a minute. You can check your texts if you'd like. You may have gotten a really important one in the first 20 minutes of this chapel. You check for missed calls. You check your email. And by the way, those of you who check your email and response and email, I'm not sure how we're supposed to say that. If you check your email and respond to it, I am so appreciative of that. Because not everybody does that. Not everybody has that habit. But that's a good phone habit, to regularly check your email and respond and to communicate that way. But just think of how many of those things that you do without even thinking about it. You will catch yourself at times and realize, oh, wow, like I was just flipping through stories for 40 minutes. I just did 30 minutes of TikTok. By the way, I have not allowed myself to start TikTok. I fear my addictive tendency because what people have shared with me has been pretty entertaining. But that demonstrates for us how habits begin. And I think it's really important to understand that your habits define you as much as your beliefs, maybe even more. So, I have specifically chosen some phone habits. If I'm not careful, I can become more connected to my phone than the people who are there in my presence. And I don't want to be that way. And so sometimes I put my phone in a drawer. Sometimes I turn it off. Sometimes I schedule a phone Sabbath or a phone rest. So like sometimes from the time I go to bed Friday night until maybe sometime Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, I don't look at my phone. I just put it away. And like I'm not saying you need to do that. What I'm telling you is that I've chosen that habit and like it's really helped me in many ways. It's helped kind of reshape the things that are important. Sometimes when my family's together, that family I showed you a picture of, one of us will say, like when we feel like we're entering into a really deep and important conversation, somebody will even ask or say, like, phones away? Is everybody good? Put their phones away? And it allows us to kind of connect on a deeper level. Well, I think what that illustrates for us is that habits are our how. So, habits aren't our why. Hopefully they're connected to our why. But habits are our how. Our daily habits, our weekly habits, those kind of become the way that we define a significant part of ourselves. And when we do them right, they define and honor our why. Something else is true about us, and that is this: we can do hard things. Let's give ourselves a round of applause for that. We can do hard things, right? I have proof. Raise your hand. You're about to help me give proof. Raise your hand if you have completed at least one difficult class in your lifetime. Raise your hand if you've completed one difficult class in your lifetime. Almost everyone's hands are up. Yeah, don't bluff. I mean, we could talk about humanities, but instead, let's do this. Chase and Maddie are going to get up again. Now we're going to ask you this question. What do you think is the most difficult class or major at Milligan? What do you think is the most difficult class or major at Milligan? If you'd like to weigh in on that subject, raise your hand and Chase or Maddie will find you. The most difficult class or major at Milligan. We have a volunteer back there. Maddie's headed back. Oh, Chase has one right over here. All right, go ahead. Take it away, Chase.
All right.
Chase.
Tell us your name.
Sam.
And what class at Milligan do you think is the most difficult?
Dr. Boer's ministry class.
Have you taken that class, or is it just your major?
I've taken that class. I'm currently in that class.
Okay. All right. Dr. Boer. Hey, Chase, let him tell us why. I got to hear why.
Tell us why? I don't know. It's challenging.
Makes you think.
Yeah, exactly. Makes you think.
All right. Dr. Boer's ministry class. I have to admit, that was not on my expected list of responses. But I appreciate you sharing that. Maddie has somebody in the back. Chase is looking for somebody else over here, too. Go ahead, Maddie.
What's your name?
Jason.
And what do you think is the most difficult class at Milligan?
Organic chemistry.
Organic chemistry. Yeah, we got an echo up here. Organic chemistry. Yeah, tell us why.
Have you taken that class?
No.
Well, then why do you think it's the most difficult?
Because I've watched friends fail it multiple times.
There you go. All right, if you're his friend, you need not identify yourself right now. All right, organic chemistry. I kind of expected we'd get at least one vote for that. All right, who do you have, Chase?
All right, tell us your name.
Taylor Dawson.
All right, and what class at Milligan do you think is the most difficult?
The two ladies to my left and right think education is the hardest major at Milligan.
Okay, the hardest major. And yeah, go ahead. Tell us why.
Why? Somebody's got to answer. What's the why?
Because she doesn't even want to major in it.
So now we might be
That's
talking
fair.
about a matter of motivation there. Okay. All right, that's one vote for education. Maddie has one more here in the middle.
Yeah. What's your name?
Name's Eleazar.
All right. And what do you think is the most difficult class or major at Milligan?
Thermodynamics 2.
Thermodynamics 2.
That's a good one. Have you taken it?
I'm taking it right now.
Why do you think it's the hardest?
Dr. Harrell.
All right, that's a compliment. Yeah, there we go. All right, thank you guys. We appreciate you sharing that. So you're telling me thermodynamics 2 is harder than thermodynamics 1. Is that what you're telling us? That would make sense. Well, I have a vote. I think this is the hardest class at Milligan. Put that class description up there. I'm not going to read that out loud because I don't want to expose any of my own ignorance. Like, that's hard to argue with. I think that might be, I've never taken it, but I think that might be the hardest class at Milligan. So there's a name in the middle there that looks like a city in Kentucky, but that's actually a French mathematician's name. I did enough research to find that out. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but okay. You are the people who've taken these classes and these majors. You're taking Dr. Boer's ministry class. You've taken organic chemistry. We got education majors. Thermodynamics 1 and 2, I suspect, would be challenging for me. So it's true that we can do hard things. But I think there's more to this, and it's important for us to understand, and that's this. We can make hard things, or we can make things either easier or more difficult with our attitude. Okay? When you forget your why, the how can become very difficult. But the opposite is also true. Friedrich Nietzsche said, "He who has a why can bear almost any how." Now, I don't want to oversell this. I think attitude is really important, but I don't want to oversell this. I'm not suggesting that simply choosing my attitude, choosing my positive attitude will bring my father back to life. Like, that's one of the most significant losses I've experienced. And I'm not standing here telling you, oh, just put on a smile and all will be well. I'm not telling you that. Choosing your attitude does not eliminate suffering. It doesn't eliminate challenges. The bottom line is this: there are certain parts of life that just stink, and that's just the way it is. But there are many tasks, many habits, many parts of our how that become a whole lot easier with a simple approach. This is a get to, not a have to. So this print was a gift to me from one of my former players. I can tell you this about coaching as a career. I did that for most of my professional career. It is a career of mistakes. Like, if you're really honest as a coach and you go back and you look hard at an individual practice or a game or a season or a whole career, what you find is a series of mistakes. Like, you've made a lot of mistakes. So I'm acknowledging that. I made a lot of mistakes as a coach. But I'm going to give myself just a little pat on the back, because one thing I've gotten right through the years I've reflected this to my players, and they've reflected it back to me. It's a get to, not a have to. Now, there are many things in life that feel like have to. 6 a.m. workout. Some of you may do those in your respective sports. A 6 a.m. workout feels like a have to, and I'm not lying to you. Like when I was involved in 6 a.m. workouts, when my alarm went off at 5:30, I was not jumping up. Yes, it's a get to. However, by about 5:35 or 5:37, I've pried myself out of the bed. I'm starting to get ready, and I'm starting to realize I get to go to the gym. Okay, that's not like going to a coal mine or digging a ditch. Like, that's a pretty good gig. So I would start to think of that as a get to. And it's amazing how that affects your approach to these things, to these habits. There are so many parts of being a team that kind of feel like a challenge, but when you dig down and look all the way at it, you realize what a great privilege it is. One of my teams was struggling, and you kind of have the dog days. Basketball players can relate to this. And it happens in January, mid to late January. You may feel like you're in them right now. But one time I put a saying on the practice schedule during this time. I said, it's better to be locked in the bathroom than locked out, especially if you have to go. Think about that. Like, yeah, you got to keep showing up for practice every day. But you know what? I wouldn't trade that for anything. Like, I'd rather be the joy of being part of a team, the privilege of being part of a team. It's just one of the greatest experiences ever. And so, going to practice every day, even when it gets a little monotonous and boring, is a get to, not a have to. That leads me to kind of my final statement about us. And that is this: God has given us gifts. Now, you'll notice that this sentence is different than the first four. The first four all began with what pronoun? We. This one begins with God. That's kind of a little detail, but it's a detail I want you to notice. And it contains the pronoun us instead of we because, like, we're the objects. We are the recipients of the gifts. And in this series, I'm not talking about what the Bible calls spiritual gifts. That's a different type of gift. But rather, we're considering gifts that God has made available for us. God has provided us as potential habits. Things that we might decide to do on a regular basis. Habits that can help us find our how. Habits that can help define us in positive ways. And like Justin Early, that author I mentioned previously, I believe our how, our habits, define us at least as much as our beliefs, if not more. I stumbled onto this book in the late 1990s, and it's called Celebration of Discipline. It's by Richard Foster. It's actually originally written in the 70s. This is the 20th year anniversary, printed in 1998. But for the first time in my life, I began to see things like prayer as a gift from God. Not something I have to do, like to make Him love me more, but something I get to do. I'm so thankful for students like Alex and Emma who value prayer. And I hope if you decide to join them on Tuesday nights, I hope you don't, this is one more thing I have to do. I hope you don't treat it that way. I hope you treat it as a get to. Because spiritual disciplines, these habits, these are gifts from God. It's not an obligation. It's not a way to earn more of that amazing grace. But rather, it's a way to modify your how. It's a way to kind of open yourself up to positive change that will benefit you and will also benefit the people around you. Because the bottom line is this: we get to live. We don't have to live, we get to. And the same could be said of all these potential spiritual habits. They are possible get-tos, not have-tos. The last thing any of us needs is one more thing that we have to do. But I think all of us would welcome some get-tos. Jesus said it like this. He invited people to follow him, and he said this in Matthew 11:28-30. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in my heart, and you will find rest in your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Now, I don't really have the expertise to explain all the Greek phrases and all the deeper meanings in those verses in that invitation, but I do know this. When I live only for myself or primarily for myself, I get really weary and burdened. But when I surrender to some more worthwhile whys and to some more worthwhile hows, I find rest, even when I'm really busy. I experience the oxymoron of a light burden. Like a light burden. I can't give you a light burden. It's either light or it's a burden. But Jesus offers a light burden. Well, here are some of the habits or disciplines that we're going to learn about this semester. These are some of the gifts that God has given to us. Some of the hows that can define who we are and help us. And so I hope you think of them as get-tos and not have-tos. So our goal is not to try to get you to master all of these, but my goal would be that you listen to each speaker and consider the habit or practice that they describe. What if you tried to incorporate one or more of them? Do you think you would ever regret developing a new good habit? Or do you think you would ever regret reshaping an old habit in a new and better way? I don't think you will. It's just like getting up and going to work out. It's hard to get up, but after you do it, very rarely do you have a regret for having done something like that. So our goal is to help you find your how. We hope to give you some potential steps to take to make your life richer, fuller, better, but not just for you and for those around you, and hopefully, ultimately, to God's glory. So we hope to present God's grace in the form of gifts of these disciplines, these things that you may choose to do because you get to do them. And we hope to help you find and refine your how. Join me as I pray. God, I'm so grateful to you for your amazing grace. We can't even begin to understand how comprehensive, expansive, and amazing it is. We thank you for our next breath, each one that has preceded it, and each one that might follow, because we know that those breaths are gifts from you. In the same way, prayer and fasting and worship and confession and Sabbath, those are all gifts from you as well. So we give thanks for those. As we pursue those this semester, help us to support and love one another. Help us to grow our hows in ways that would bring you honor and glory. All this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Go in peace.